So all of you go to your textbook page 397. 397. I will now present my screen to you. Page 397. 397. Uh, yes, last lesson we talked about the causes or the reasons for the Cultural Revolution, and uh, last lesson I also told you that the process of the Cultural Revolution is a bit complicated, and I will show you I will show you some videos, and then you can understand the process of the Cultural Revolution by yourself. And we don't talk about the details of the progress in the lesson. We only talk about the characteristics in the lesson, and also we don't talk about the uh, it should be we talk about the causes, the characteristics, and the results. Okay, but we don't talk about the details in the process. Okay, so page 391 to 395 can be skipped, or you read them by yourself, or actually the videos will tell you things about these pages, and our some pages on our PowerPoint will be about these pages as well. And however, uh, the pages, the PowerPoint slides that is about these pages are all characteristics of the movement, but we don't talk about the details of the process. Okay, again, we talk about the characteristics. So again, we go back to page 397 first. 397. After we finish the impact, I go back to characteristics. Okay, so uh, page 397, it is about the impact, the result, the effect of the Cultural Revolution. And your textbook divide all the impact into two groups. One is positive impact, another one is negative impact. As I told you, this way of categorization may not be correct when we are studying history, because uh, things cannot be organized in such a simple way. Okay, in the eyes of this book or editor, it seems that in this world there are only two kinds of impact. One is positive, another one is negative. But number one, what do you mean by positive, right? How do you know that is positive? It depends on how you look into the things. For example, when you are promoting communism, it is positive to the communists, to the socialists, to the poor people, right? However, to the capitalists, to the intellectuals, maybe that is not good, right? So it really depends on where you stand or how you look into the things. That is why I think this approach may not be suitable. But anyway, we can try to understand how the editors think. Okay, so the positive impact of the Cultural Revolution is that number one on page 397, it is said that promoting CPC leaders to reflect on the modernization efforts. Okay, it is said that the Cultural Revolution was a mistake. Okay, it seems his idea, the editor's idea, is that this Cultural Revolution is a mistake, and after the Cultural Revolution, the CPC leaders could reflect on their effort or on what they did on their works. Okay, so it on this page 397, this paragraph, the last paragraph, says that after the Cultural Revolution, Deng Xiaoping tried to restore the power or try to maintain social stability, and then after the Cultural Revolution, they had a very clear idea, that is to maintain stability, stop class struggles, and then the economy could be developed. Okay. However, as I have told you that Deng Xiaoping is always having opposite idea against Mao Zedong. Deng Xiaoping wants to keep some elements of the capitalism. Okay, Deng Xiaoping is not a complete communist. Okay, Deng Xiaoping always wants to integrate some elements from the capitalism into socialism. Okay, this is Deng Xiaoping. However, Mao Zedong is totally different. Mao Zedong is a complete communist. He didn't care about the life of the people in China. For example, when a lot of people die in China, he may not think that is a bad thing. Uh, the way Mao Zedong view things is very different to many people. Okay, and that is why he is a communist, because communists think in different way. Okay, but however, when we talk about the capitalists or the people who believe in capitalism, they are, or they can think like ordinary people. For example, when you are hungry, when you don't have food, you will be upset or you will be hungry. Okay, but to communists, they may not think in that way. They may think that if you don't have food, that is good, because when you don't have food, you may try to fight against those who oppress you. Maybe the government, maybe your boss. In the eyes of communists, they think in different way. But in the eyes of capitalists or people like Deng Xiaoping, they think in the perspective of ordinary people. So that is why the differences between Deng Xiaoping and Mao Zedong caused the change after the Cultural Revolution. After the Cultural Revolution, all of us know that there will be a new policy called reform and opening up policy, which turned China to a kind of capitalist country. A kind of, okay, not completely capitalist. A kind of, okay. However, when Mao Zedong was still alive, China never went to the track on capitalism or free market. That is impossible. So, the key factor that caused the difference should be the difference between Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping, but not Cultural Revolution. Okay, and how can we know that? Even after the Great Leap Forward, if you remember, after the three red banners, Great Leap Forward, you can see that when Deng Xiaoping, Deng Xiaoping got the power, they also try to do similar things. That is to uh, promote the responsibility system, right? Promote responsibility system, allow the people to have some uh, extra values. Extra values. For example, uh, before that, before Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping, that means when Mao Zedong ruled the country, all citizens need to submit all their products, right? That you can't save anything, you can't keep anything. In this case, because you can't keep anything, you won't work hard, right? You don't have any motivation to work hard. But however, in the period of Liu Shaoqi, Deng Xiaoping, they allow people to keep things, to accumulate things. Accumulate means to save and keep, right? To save and keep the productions. So after a few years, you can be rich, or at least you find a reason to work harder, right? Because the more you work, the more you gain. This is the basic principle of Deng Xiaoping's economic philosophy. Okay. However, uh, no, this is why I would say that Deng Xiaoping is always a person like that. Okay. Even 15 years ago, I mean, in 1961, he was having that kind of ideology. Okay. So This is not because of the Cultural Revolution that Deng Xiaoping want to maintain stability, but 15 years ago, Deng Xiaoping already thought in that way. So this point can be skipped. We move on to page 398. Okay. Now, so page 398, it mentions some process of the Cultural Revolution. Uh, on line number 1 to line number 2. Okay, on line number 1 to line number 2. Sorry, my screen is not about the textbook. You just focus on the textbook at this moment. Okay, later we use the PowerPoint. So line number 1 to line number 2, you can see that Mao reinitiated the industrial construction plan in the villages. Okay, Mao started to reinitiate the uh, construction plan in the villages. That means Mao started to care about villages, right? And to develop industries that supported agricultural production. Okay, now you can see that Mao in the Cultural Revolution, Mao tried to have some interaction with the villages, and of course, there are a lot of events made or initiated by Mao, yes, or launched by Mao. And let me give you an example. For example, now on my screen, you can see that uh, the second slide is talking about a movement called Down to the Countryside movement. Okay, Down to the Countryside movement was launched in the 70s. 70s. Okay, the Cultural Revolution started in 1966 or 1967. However, the Down to the Countryside movement started in the 1970s. Okay, 1970s. At that time, at the time, the all the students in the whole country were encouraged to work in the villages. They are not encouraged to study. And at that time, there are some famous quote made by Mao Zedong. Let me wait for a moment. There are some slogan. Okay, you know the Chinese people love to use slogan, just like the Western people or black people. Okay, Black Lives Matter, something like that. Very interesting. Okay, this is one slogan. You can remember this. You can yes recite this. This may be useful in your DBQ as an example to show that at that time the ideology was that the people focused on agricultural development, and they didn't care about their intellectual development. Intellectual development means that you don't need to study hard in university. You just need to work. You can gain experience by working. But the problem is why Mao Zedong did that. Okay, the problem is why Mao Zedong did that. Now, if you just look things on the surface, if you just look into the things on the surface, okay, uh, if you just look into the things on the surface, you may find out that Mao Zedong is really a fool. Okay, Mao Zedong uh, asked the people don't go to study but go to work. This is what a peasant may say. This is what a farmer may say. Okay, if you really study in university, how can you say that, right? If you really study, yes, in university, you should be able to find out the meaning of studying, right? You may be able uh, to figure out the importance of studying, and you should know that studying can bring more values to working. Okay, I mean, if you were an intellectuals, you will think in that way. Then why would Mao Zedong think in this way? Why would he have this slogan? So it is very complicated. Mao Zedong is always complicated. Uh, Number one, as I've told you, uh, the Cultural Revolution, in my perspective, is a movement launched by Mao Zedong to regain the power, okay, to remove his enemy in the CPC, like Deng Xiaoping, Liu Shaoqi. This is number one. Based on this point, I think he is trying to mobilize the the villages or the farmers and also the some students. Okay, they are trying to mobilize the students to do something, just like uh, a lot of people will be mobilized by the CCP nowadays. Okay, they are doing things without reason sometimes, but they just enjoy it, right? They think that is cool. uh, yes, and this may be useful when it comes to the political struggle. When they have a lot of people, imagine, guys, when the students are together, when they are together, and then there are some people who disagree with them. However, because there are too many students in one place, if you even when you disagree with them, would you try to argue with them? You may not, right? Because uh, there are so many people. If you try to argue with them, you are at disadvantage, right? This is number one. Or even secondly, at that time you know that they will uh, criticize other people easily. They would even punish other people easily. That there is no law. Of course, there is law, but the soldiers, the policemen would not do anything. Okay, so if you try to argue with them, even when they punish you, okay, nobody would help you. So they didn't dare to argue with them when they have when they have so many people. So in this case, I think this is a way that Mao Zedong tried to mobilize the people to achieve some political goal. Okay, and that is the point. That is my point number one. Point number two. Uh, as I have told you a long time ago, Mao Zedong was discriminated by a lot of scholars, intellectuals when he was young. When he was young, he tried to uh, apply for some position in universities, and a lot of scholars, okay, a lot of scholars discriminated him and said he was just a farmer, okay, and he was very angry, but he didn't show his anger. He was very angry. According to many books, he was very angry, and he thought that although I am a farmer, actually born you are just born from a rich family, and then you can go to you can go to study overseas, and then when you come back you become a scholar. But when it comes to the capability or ability, okay, uh, Mao Zedong was very confident that he was better than those scholars, but in reality it shows that it is true. When it comes to the political power, when it comes to the political achievement, Mao Zedong never lose. It is amazing. Uh, that is why he always hates the scholars, and that is why in the Cultural Revolution, one of the agenda is to punish the scholars. A lot of scholars, intellectuals were punished. Mao Zedong didn't care about that. Okay, that is what Mao Zedong want to see. So that is why I think this slogan, maybe this is not what Mao Zedong want to say. This slogan may be not what Mao Zedong want to say, but however, it is a tool, an instrument, okay, a weapon to achieve the goals of Mao Zedong. Okay, and of course, Mao Zedong loves studying. Okay, he loves studying. He always think that people, youngsters, teenagers, those who don't study can do nothing in their future. Okay, he loves studying, he enjoys studying, and he know the values of studying. But the point is, he is not caring about studying at this moment. He care about power. He care about revenge. Okay, this is my perspective. Okay, so we go back to our textbook. Point number 2.1: promoting the development in rural areas. Now it is said that Mao Zedong turned his focus back to the agricultural production. Is that correct? No, because again, uh, mm, first of all, in the first paragraph, you can't see any numbers to support this viewpoint. In paragraph number 2, you can see some numbers, but the problem is, what are the numbers? The numbers are the increase of number of students in village primary school and the number of the students in secondary school. Yes. So why would we have this difference? It can be the students in cities decided to go to the villages to study. That is why there are more students in the villages. At that time, very interestingly, the students, just like they have a religious belief, they always believe in Mao Zedong, and I don't know why. Because I was not born at that time, I don't know why. Uh, but at that time, the people, all of them would worship Mao Zedong and believe what he said. Even 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 when we talk about when we talk with the uncles, okay, aunties who had gone through this period nowadays, some of them would still think Mao Zedong is a good leader. Okay, yes. But anyways, this paragraph didn't give you any example. It didn't give you any evidence, get any numbers to support that. The agricultural production was really boosted. Okay, it can only tells you one thing. That is, they care about agricultural production or they care about agriculture. But in fact, it is not. I can tell you, it is not, because they are just doing some propaganda. You can see there are a lot of posters showing that the youngsters going to farm. But do you think that these youngsters could really boost the agricultural production? Not really. They always do something on the surface. Okay, they go to the villages, but would they work hard? May not. Okay, so this point can be skipped. 我想問我隻狗叫你哋聽唔聽到㗎？我驚嘈嗰頭啊。Okay, okay. Then we move on. Uh, Point number 2.2: continual development in heavy industry. This is not a result made by the Cultural Revolution, because in the Cultural Revolution they didn't have any campaign. They didn't have any campaign, particularly boosting the industrial development. Okay, so this is just a development made by the country, but not the Cultural Revolution. So we can skip it. So in fact, the Cultural Revolution brought no positive impact in my personal perspective to China. Okay, if you really look into economic growth, there is nothing. Okay, the Cultural Revolution. It really depends on how you look into the things. The Cultural Revolution did made some changes, but some of them may be good to some people, but they may be bad to some people as well. For example, uh, the Cultural Revolution destroyed the traditional thought. For example, what kind of traditional thoughts? Um, at that time, they are trying to achieve complete communism, right? That is why they don't have a concept called family. Okay, what is family? The nation is a family. They don't have a family in which you can have a father, a mother, a brother, a sister. Okay, in their perspective, a family is talking about a nation. So they don't have a concept called father or mother. Okay, At that time, they didn't have any social order. Okay, you can say there was social disorder. Social disorder. It is social disorder. But this is not in your textbook. Ah, it is on your textbook, but that is in the negative impact. So we can talk about that when we talk about the negative impact. Now, so we move on. Negative impact point number one. Uh, that is on your textbook page 399. 399. Now, when we talk about the political negative impact, it is talking about that they had some beliefs crisis. Okay, beliefs crisis. What is the beliefs crisis? That is the people started to lose confidence in the government. Like on your textbook, page 399, point number one, political aspect, paragraph number two. Paragraph number two. You can see that in this paragraph, on in the middle of this paragraph, you can see this arose the so-called three belief crisis: crisis of confidence, trust, and faith. People lost confidence in the government, trust in the CPC, and faith in Marxism Leninism. However, uh, it it is the perspective of Deng Xiaoping or the people favoring Deng Xiaoping. Okay, because at that time, now you can see. Actually, I show you some posters only. However, in fact, there are some videos to show you that the youngsters or a lot of people really believe in what Mao Zedong says. When imagine, guys, when you're convinced to join a campaign, do you think that you don't have confidence in it? Do you think you don't have trust, you don't have faith in it? Of course not. When the youngsters are encouraged to do something and they really go out to do that thing, of course they have some confidence in it, they trust it, and they also have faith in it, right? That is why I don't think they really have this problem, the three belief crisis. But I understand that to some so-called elites, okay, or the ruling class or the upper class. Who are the upper class? The scholars, intellectuals. That means those who can enjoy high social status in society. Okay, these people maybe they would lose confidence, trust, and faith because they are losing something. They are losing stability, right? They are losing stability. They may be even losing their lives, their families, okay, their economic interests, because they are already at a high social status. They fear that they will lose these things. However, to the youngsters, they had nothing to lose, right? So it really depends on the which group of people you are talking about. And but it is true that you can say that in this period, we can see political instability everywhere in China. You can say that. That means China was politically unstable. Okay, politically unstable. But you can't say that the citizens didn't have confidence in the government or in the CPC, because if they really don't have confidence, then you can't see so many people supporting Mao Zedong every day, right? The Red Guard, they will patrol around the city every day, bringing the red book on their hand. So you can see that uh, it really depends on how you look into the things. Now, point number two, economic aspect disrupted economic development. This is correct. 因為 sorry, because if you look into the graph later, you will be able to see a graph. Okay, that shows the production or the total revenue. That is on your textbook page 400. Page 400. That is on your textbook page 400. You can see the number kept declining. Okay, the total revenue of China kept declining, and that is only talking about the production or the revenue in 3 years. Later, I will show you more numbers, then you will know that the industrial development kept declining. Okay, and actually the production of the whole country kept declining. Okay, so it is correct, or you just remember the number given by your textbook on this page, paragraph number 2. Okay, and at the same time you can see that on page 398, point number 2.1 and point number 2.2, they are talking about economic development. However, on page 399, point number 2, it is said that the economic development was disrupted. So you can see it is very uh, contradictory. There may be more than one editors, right? Otherwise, how can one editor have so diverse opinion on these 2 pages, right? On one hand, it is said that the Cultural Revolution developed the economies, the agricultural production, industrial production. On the other hand, it is said that the cultural development disrupted the economic development. Now, this is totally contradictory. So, remember, don't blindly remember what the textbook says. You need to find out what or which paragraphs are reliable and reasonable and which are not. When you see some unreasonable argument, unreasonable paragraphs, just cross it out. Of course, you don't need to draw a big cross. Maybe you just draw some symbols, okay, next to the paragraph, and then you will know about that. Anyway, we move on to page 400. Now, page 400 and 401, these 2 pages are more important, I think, because when we talk about the political instability, when we talk about the economic laws, they are very direct, they are very straightforward, very or everybody would know about these. However, when we talk about something more in depth about the Cultural Revolution, it should be in the social aspect more, I think. Social aspect. That is on your textbook, page 400 and page 401. Okay? So, uh, point number 3 on your textbook, page 400, is talking about the cultural and educational aspect. That is, they started to lose their traditional culture. But again, it really depends on how you look into the things. When we talk about the May 4th movement, do you remember May 4th movement? That is before the, not before, but after the First World War. Okay, after the First World War, when we talk about the May 4th movement, one of the impact of the May 4th movement is that they destroy the traditional thought, right? They started to embrace, to accept Western ideas completely. Some scholars like Hu Shi, okay, Hu Shi, he even promote turning Chinese language into something like English, okay? That is to uh, just like Japanese, just like Japanese, okay? However, to a lot of Chinese scholars, they may also think that that is destroying the Chinese culture. Just like if you look into Japan nowadays, many youngsters no longer know how to read and write the the the, the, the Chinese character. In the past, 200 years ago, they used the Chinese characters in their writing. However, nowadays no Japanese know how to do that. No, oh sorry, not no, but only a very small group of Japanese could do that. I mean the youngsters. Okay. Okay. So anyway, so it really depends on how you look into the things. It destroyed the traditional culture, but does that mean it is always a bad thing? It really depends on how you look into the thing. So what did he do? What did the Cultural Revolution do? Or what did Mao Zedong do? Okay. So line number 1, you can see that uh, there are some slogan again. Okay, for example, in the first paragraph. Okay. Uh, so this is movement, one of the movement or launched by the Red Guard or the Cultural Revolution or Mao Zedong. So they are talking about the old thoughts. Okay, but in Chinese it should be okay. Uh, I think in English you just need to remember three of them. Okay, and because habit can have the two meanings. Yes. So yes, destroying the four oaths, that is to stop believing in Confucianism or stop following the tradition, something like that. And also they have another movement called anti-lean, anti-Confucians campaign. Anti-lean, anti. Okay. So Confucius here means you know Confucius, right? Uh, yes, that means they um no longer follow the moral code of Confucianism. But this is the first step. More terribly, they, I mean, the Red Guard would have some movement to destroy Confucianism. How to do that? For example, destroying the temples, destroying their artworks, destroying all the artifacts about Confucianism. Anyways, if there is anything about them, just destroy it. Okay, because this is to show their determination. If I show you the videos, then you will know what I mean. Okay, they when they are doing or when they are trying to fight against something, they can go very far. That they would destroy anything about them. Okay, for example, in this case, when they are anti-Confucianism, when you can see a book about Confucianism on the street. Now, normally, the ordinary people would just walk by the book, right? They just ignore the book. However, the people at that time would take the book and then maybe burn it, maybe tear it apart with their hands, something like that. They won't just walk by because in their mind, they are full of that kind of anger or emotion. Okay, so at that time, a lot of temples were destroyed, a lot of artifacts, artworks about Confucianism, or even not only about Confucianism, maybe they are the artworks in the past because they are trying to anti-tradition, right? They are trying to be anti-tradition. They didn't want to see any old thought. That is why even when they see things about maybe Song Dynasty, maybe Yuan, maybe Ming Dynasty, okay, they will destroy it anyway. They just want to care about the things on the earth now. Okay, and also they would care about one thing, that is Mao Zedong. Okay, that is why they always, or all the students would have a red book, or that is actually called the selected works of Mao Zedong. On your textbook page 400, you can see that. Okay. mm, yes. Now, on your textbook page 401, you can see point number 3.2. 3.2. That is talking about the shortage of talent. Now, this is correct. This is correct. As I have said, a lot of students from the cities were encouraged to go to study in the villages. They are not allowed, they are not encouraged to study in cities. But when we talk about studying in university, studying in high school, it should be normally in cities, right? For example, when we talk about the most well-known university in mainland China, they are the Peking or Beijing University or Tsinghua University, right? Uh, they are all in cities. And in the villages, you can't see universities because universities are for the development uh, of the whole nation, right? But when we talk about the villages, they are mainly doing one thing, that is producing food. They don't need to have uh, so much knowledge, right? They just need to work hard, or they may need some knowledge, but they don't need so much knowledge, or the knowledge in university could not help them, right? Because in university at that time, people study philosophy, historiography, economics, right? Or maybe laws. They are not trying, maybe science as well, yes. However, they are not going to teach you how to farm. But interestingly, of course, nowadays, people go to university to study how to farm. Nowadays, for example, they study how to be a nurse, something like that. Okay, so the time has changed. But anyways, at that time, nobody would study in village because in villages, they only provide very basic education, such as primary school. Okay, they teach you how to read and write. That's all. But when you want to learn how to think, you need to go to cities. That is why those who can learn how to think go to the villages now. And that is why there was a shortage of talent. And some people, I mean, I am not sure whether or not you have heard about that. I have heard from some uncles or aunties, okay? Uncles or aunties, they told me that they are not confident in the leadership of the CCP nowadays. Why? Because they think that the leadership or the leaders of the CCP nowadays are actually grown from this period, in this period, from this cultural revolution. Just like Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping also joined the Down to the Countryside movement. Okay, so they have a conclusion that these people didn't really study hard. These people didn't really learn how to think. They are just like a farmer. They can't rule a country. They can't rule China. Something like that. Okay, this is the viewpoint of some uncles or aunties that I have seen, I have met. Okay, and I'm not sure because uh, I didn't really study all the details of this movement. I'm not sure whether or not this is just a propaganda or the students really study nothing at that time. And this is one thing. Secondly, I'm not sure whether or not these students would be uh, re-nurtured. I mean re-nurtured. That means they may receive other education later, but we are not sure, right? Maybe after a few years when Deng Xiaoping got the power, he can also go to study in other places. We are not sure, right? We are not sure whether or not they also uh, receive other education. So it is hard to tell. But anyways, at that time, it is true that most of the people did not receive education, and that is also why when you look into when you can do the calculation by yourself. The people, those who are born in this period, or those who receive primary or secondary education in this period, nowadays when they go to when they go to when we talk about our society now, okay, these people actually they are about, I think, 50 50 years old. It should be 50 years old. These people, if they were born in this period, maybe some of them are, not all of them, some of them may be a bit stubborn. This is my personal experience that sometimes they they would not listen to, or they could not discuss with others in a reasonable way sometimes, but only part of them, okay, not all of them, okay, part of them. Yes, that is the maybe maybe there is some relationship, I'm not sure, okay, but anyways, you can try to figure it out by yourself to see if this is true, but of course we can't find out the complete truth. We can't find out the truth, but we may find out whether or not uh, uh, this argument is convincing or valid. Anyways, so we move on. Point number 4, social aspect: decline in morals and widespread resentment. Um, so decline in morality. It should be morality. Morality. Okay, and widespread resentment. Uh, it is talking about the moral standard decline. The moral standard decline. That means moral standard means this one. And resentment. Okay, moral standard decline. How can we see that? As we said that they no longer have some traditional concept or traditional order. For example, how can we see that? For example, they don't have a father, they don't have a mother, they only have a leader, they only have a nation, they don't have a family, something like that. Any example? Yes, line number 3 to line number 4. Parents may love me, but not as much as Chairman Mao. Okay, they believe that Chair, Chairman Mao is just like their father. Okay, and there is no things called father or mother. It seems that it really depends on how you look into the things. It seems that it is terrible that you don't have this concept. You don't even respect your father or mother, although they may raise you up, right? They give you food, they provide you with clothes, something like that. But now you don't have a concept that you need to respect them, and you don't even call them father mother. That is terrible for those who are father and mother, right? However, to some communists, this is an evolution, because in the utopia of communism, it should be of no classes, right? All the people should be at the same level, no classes, no levels. That is why actually to the communists, this is good. So it really depends on how you look into the things. But of course, many people would think this will cause social instability, social disorder, and that is why uh, you can say it is negative, because to most of the people it is negative. Okay, and one more thing, there are some examples to show that they don't have this kind of orderly concept. For example, uh, in some secondary school, the students will uh, criticize the teachers and principals in public, and some of them even kill the principals and then eat the principal. I'll show you some video, then you will know. Okay, in Guangxi, okay, Guangxi province, they love, sorry, not they love, but at that time the people would have this habit that they eat human beings. No, why would you try to think in that way？你想點啊？喂，蘇卓軒，你想點啊？我我唔會 show 片喎，我錄音應該冇嘢嘅。咁事實真係食過人啊嘛，食人佢哋真係食過人，呢個係事實嚟啊嘛。除非過多幾十年就可能冇嗰件事嘅。點都好啦嚇，快講埋佢先，得翻3分鐘。OK，finally diplomatic aspect deteriorating foreign relations. This is actually wrong. It is true that you can say you can see on this page that in 1967 the Red Guard set the office of the British Charge affairs in China on fire. This became a very serious diplomatic incident. And then the Red Guard attacked Indians, okay, something like that. It may cause a deterioration of the foreign relations. It is true that they had some conflict, but the problem is that if you look into this Cultural Revolution and the whole period, you can find out that it actually did not really do any harm or any significant harm to the foreign relations of the PRC. How can we say that? For example, I'm not sure whether or not you remember this. In 1971, the president of USA, President Nixon, visit China. We will talk about this man later, don't worry. When he visited China, he tried to rebuild the relationship with China. Yes, at that time, 1971, he visited China. At that time, Mao Zedong was still here, and Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai had some meetings with Nixon, and that is why you can see actually. One more thing. Finally, USA started to recognize the PRC as the regime of China, but not Taiwan. Okay, so that is why even nowadays, the United Nations recognize the PRC but not Taiwan. Okay, but before 1971, they recognized Taiwan but not the PRC or the ROC. Okay, Republic of China, Taiwan, ROC, and in mainland China we have PRC. So, why would Nixon do that? Because Nixon want to isolate the Soviet Union. Okay, anyways, and you can see actually, although the Red Guard did something bad to them, however, in the diplomatic affairs, countries, I mean, these powerful countries only care about one thing, that is interest and also victory in diplomatic conflict. So, as long as China is useful to them, or the PRC is useful to them, then they don't have, or they would not care about these little conflict. So, on your textbook, you may see that the Red Guard attack them. However, do you think that Britain still feel angry about them? Of course not. Of course not, because your big brother USA already make friends with the PRC, right? You can't do anything to them. So actually, I don't think point number 5 is valid. If you use the Nixon's visit as an example, in 1971, Nixon visited China, and then they started to recognize China, the PRC. They started to recognize the PRC as the regime of China, but not the ROC. And after USA did that, the Japanese Prime Minister also visited China, and then they did the same thing. You can see that actually in the Cultural Revolution, actually there may be some improvement in the diplomatic aspect. So you can see actually point number 5 is not valid. Okay, but anyway, we can finish the cultural revolution already, and As for the next part of your textbook, wow, interesting. Like you read it by yourself from page 405 to page 409. You or 410. Okay. Uh, these pages are the the uh, achievement and limitation of Mao's rule of China, or it is said the overall evaluation of the Maoist period. That means whether or not Mao could bring positive development to positive impact to China or not. But again, some points are valid, some points are not. It really depends. You figure it out by yourself. If we have time, we will come back. But in fact, in the coming future, we will have another essay type question that is about this, about this topic. It is talking about uh, the achievement and the destruction brought by Mao Zedong. Which one is more? Okay, we will talk about that. And I think that that question is similar to these pages, but again, sometimes the argument made by the editors are not valid, are not convincing. So you need to find out or pick some that are convincing by yourself. And later we will talk about this pet topic in that essay type question. And that means I'll give you the video these days on the Google Classroom, and then next time we will talk about the characteristics of the Cultural Revolution, and then we can move on to the opening up policy. Okay. Any question?